Okay, and an example that she gave was mommy sock. And on this class, you gave so many good interpretations of different interpretations of what the child could be saying just by saying the word mommy sock. It all depended on the context, and therefore it wasn't just about, you know, two words together in a noun phrase, verb phrase. It was that the context, these same two words could have very, very different meanings. And that was how children learn language, through meaning, not through just word order. So word order is marked by semantic relationships. Let's see. Did we go over this? Oh, yeah, I think so, because I remember stating this. This is important to have a little star. Semantic relations develop before they do syntax. So they think about the meaning, and then they think about the syntactical relationships in it. And they also learn that there are rules, and they understand the word order, because they'll say mommy eat or eat cookie, but they won't say cookie eat, or they won't say eat mommy. They understand that is silly, you know, so innately they understand eat mommy is silly, and they'll start to giggle as if that's, you know, that's a funny thing. So children tend to understand the distinction. So as you can see, even within this theory, it's still talking about syntax as being innate and something that children tend to understand. And so a syntactic analysis will tell you that this is a noun and a verb, but a semantic analysis will tell you that this is an agent, because she's doing something, and this is an action. The syntactic analysis will tell you this is a verb and an object, but semantic analysis will tell you this is an action and an object. All right, so that's the difference here. Now the semantics, even though it still represented part of the innate theory, it did weaken the role of the innate theory of language, because it's still saying that context is important. So context has to do with the environment. So environment is also important for learning language. So it did weaken the role that this, you know, lad or this innate thing, even without the environment, that language would be developed. In semantics, there is thought before language. So thought has to do with cognition, cognitive skills. So semantic relationships reflect the development of cognitive structures. So what are cognitive structures? The big name Piaget. Do you know Piaget? The Piagetian learning theory. Have any of you heard of him? Yeah. Piaget. Anyone? Oh, I keep fading out. Hold on. Thank you for telling me, Susan. Let's see. Has anyone heard? Is that better? Is that better? Hello? Okay. Okay. Well, is it better? I don't know which question you're answering. Okay, good. I think that's my question. Okay. All right, good. Oh, Susan says, we'll see. Susan said, let's see. All right. Piaget, have you heard of Piaget? From, it would be in education, learning. Okay, oh good. All right, so we have a mixed group here. somebody wants to know about turning off. I don't know about open ed. You may be thinking more about, are you thinking more Montessori? You're thinking more Montessori. Piaget, through Piaget, that's how we get a lot of our early IQ tests. Okay, all right. So Piaget is the big name when you talk about cognitive theory for language development. I mean, there are a bunch of cognitivists around, and they study so many different things because it's such a broad area. But for Piaget, he was really interested in how children learned and how they learned the language. So when you think of cognition, you're thinking about, the easy way to put it to you is it's an aspect of IQ, intelligence. It's how you think. So according to Piaget, cognitive development is important for language development. So if you don't have those cognitive skills, then it is difficult to learn language. A cognitive skill is imitation. So if an important part of learning language is through imitation, as the behaviorists say, then the child has to have that cognitive skill to know what imitation is in order to learn language. So imitation is a cognitive skill needed for language. Oh, Lordy, have mercy. Okay. Ooh. Well, okay. I don't know about direct. I really don't know what you mean by that. Direct contradiction. They do say, they say language is not innate, but they say the cognitive precursors are innate. I think Brad wants to start a feud here. So, there are some issues here. Wait till you get to the next group, because yes, Piaget believes that cognition, thinking, is, without thinking, you have nothing, which kind of makes sense in a way, that without thought, without intelligence, he pulls his, a lot of his information from, looking at children whose intelligence, may not be as developed as others, and he also noticed the language was delayed. So therefore, the people, if you don't have the, if something's wrong with your cognitive skills, then there's, that is about as good as you're going to get in language. And let me tell you, many school systems believe the very same thing, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We don't have time for that. It's Susan. Okay, let me talk a little bit about the cognitive theory before we start comparing the theories. Okay, so according to Piaget, there are things that are innate in people, but it's not language. It's the cognitive precursors for language that are innate. It is the ability to imitate. It is the ability to remember. It is the ability to perceive. Those are the skills that are innate. And because those skills are innate, people learn language. And that language itself is not innate. Does that make sense? So, and he says, language isn't necessarily learned like the behaviorists say. Language emerges as the child discovers their environment, as the child discovers that an object doesn't just disappear whenever it goes away. When babies are little or young, if you take an object away, they think it's gone forever because they only have what is immediate. But later on, they realize that the object is over there on the table. That's called object permanence. So now they developed something called symbolism. So without the cognitive skill of symbolism, how in the world can you come up with a word? That's Piaget. Yes, processing speed, logic, reasoning, all of that is cognitive. Those are cognitive skills. Yes, Susan, yes. So Piaget says for children, they develop these cognitive skills. Those are the things that your brain, that are innate within your brain, and then the environment stimulates, from problem solving and, exploring the environment, causing language to emerge, causing them to want to create words or develop words. Language emerges. It's not shaped just because somebody reinforces it or repeats it, and they have to imitate, and then you got to reinforce, imitate. He says, no, it emerges because the concepts of cognition begin to grow. The brain and the logic about the world develops, and through this development, language emerges. So now let's see. Okay, before we go there, I want you to think about this. Think about your preschools. Think about toys. The toys that you present to little kids who are not talking, maybe. Puzzles. Trying to match perception, match the shape of the puzzle, you see. Matching. That's cognitive. Those are cognitive skills that build up to language. The jack-in-the-box. The little fella head pops out and then you put it back in as if it's gone. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? So because the child wants to problem solve of where he goes, he uses language to help with the problem. He picks up the language that is being used around him, but his whole idea is to problem solve. So as he's problem solving, language emerges as part of that. I'm trying to think of other toys, because I used to do this with very young nonverbal children. I used to work on their cognitive skills. I used to hide things to see if they would try to find where they were. I would show them that I'm putting it in a box, cover the box, see if they would come and open the box to take it out. Children who were really cognitive impaired, really severely cognitive impaired, did not go to open the box to take it out. Cause and effect, that if I do something, something happens. So you see those pull toys? When the child pulls the string, the toy will follow. That's cognition. Play, early play, is teaching cognitive skills to young children. And that early play is supposed to be the precursor for language. So you think about what you're doing with your kids. I see Brad is writing something, so I'm going to wait a little bit. Oh. That's because his cognitive skills were still developing. And that's what Piaget is saying, that without these cognitive skills, it's going to be difficult for the child to learn language. So it is cognition that builds language. Cognition is the most important thing, and then language. So let's make it even more real. I don't know how many of you work in the schools, or if you work with special needs. And now, I don't know if they still do this, but when I used to work as a contract speech pathologist with a school, when they have these IEP meetings, the psychologist would come in with a test, IQ test, right? IQ test. And the psychologist would say, this child's IQ is 60, which is, severely impaired. I think that's right, moderately severe, something like that, impaired. The speech pathologist would come in with her test. The speech pathologist would say, oh, my child scored, now let me tell you a mean of this so you can get the meaning of this. On an IQ test, an average score is 100. So if you have an IQ of 100 exactly, you're average. If you have an IQ, an average doesn't have to be C. An average can be a B or an A. You're average. That's it. You have an average IQ. You're not an average person. All right. So now the standard deviation is 15. So that means you can deviate from the mean 15 points above and 15 points below 100. So if you have an IQ of 115, that's average. If you have an IQ of 85, that's average. All right? Now you start getting below 85, you are below average. You start getting above 115, you are above average. You get to over a 130, you are considered gifted. Okay. So, and different schools have different cutoffs, of what those scores are. But that's what they do. They either go by 1 standard deviation, 1.5 standard deviations, and that would be 22 points above and below 100. 100 is the mean for all those things. So, okay, thank you, Donna. They still do the evaluations that way. 100 is the mean. And some people do 2 standard deviations, so that would be 30 points, because 1 standard deviation is 15 points. So 30 points, that would mean from 100, that's a 70. So, anybody that scores 70 or below, then you're going to need, you're in special services. You're in special services. So, all right, so you got the kid. The psychologist comes in, and he says, this child scored a 60 on the IQ. Now, average is 100. So you can see here, this child, it has cognitive impairment. Now, some children with cognitive impairment can communicate, and their language will be, okay, or, not quite okay, but maybe not as low as their cognitive skills. And some kids are lower, their language will be lower. So the speech pathologist comes in with her test score. The speech pathologist says, oh my goodness, well, he scored a 62 on my language. Now, 62 on anybody's language scale is a severe language impairment. I don't care what language test you give in our field. You get a 62, that's not good. That's severe language impairment. So then the schools, the committee will sit around and say, oh, well, he scored a 62 on his language test. He scored a 60 on his IQ test. This means he can't make any more improvements. He has met his potential. That's what this means. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay. That he has met his potential. So he will not be seen for speech pathology. This is all based on the research of the cognitive theorist, Piaget, that if your cognitive skills are at a certain point, that is your potential. That's it. That's you. And if you score, whatever you score on the test, that's about as high as you can get because you have met your intellectual potential. Now, of course, since I'm speaking in this way, I don't agree with this, but I'm just saying that that is the research behind why, how test scores are compared in the school system. Okay, any questions so far on that aspect of it? It's important for me to make it real so you can sort of see how these theories aren't just words on paper. These theories affect people's lives. Any questions? So Piaget has had a big impact on the educational system throughout the United States. Okay, so part of a cognitive system, and we're going to talk about Piaget a little bit later because there's a whole chapter on him. I think he's chapter 4 in your book. But part of a cognitive theory also includes this model. It's called the information processing competition model. they're saying that how language functions, not grammar, creates language structure. Okay. So again, people are pulling away from Chomsky, because Chomsky was the man. Chomsky was the man back in the 50s, in the 60s. Grammar, grammar, grammar. And then people started saying, no, it's semantics. Then, no, it's cognition. So this group of people are furthering the cognitive type theory. So they're saying that humans have an information processing system. This is our brain. Our brains are information processing systems, just like a computer. You see, I can kind of go with that a little bit, yeah. So information from the environment. So we take in the information from the environment, we look over there and we say, oh, there's a book, and it is organized into our brain into symbolic codes. If you do programming in a computer, everything is organized into codes, right? 0, 1, it's either 0 or 1, I believe, right? So maybe 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, that type of thing. It's a code and it stands for something so that the computer can operate in a certain way. So these codes are held in your memory. Memory, that's a cognitive skill, memory. They're held in your memory until you retrieve them. So it's the information processing system that helps you to learn language, not just some LAD, some grammatical device within you. So it's innate, but it's not language that's innate. It will be the cognitive precursors for language that would be innate. So they still are part nativists, but in a different way. Okay. Children are not born with an internally wired system. So it's not internally wired. What they mean by the wires are already, let me change that. The wires are there for the children. They're there. But they aren't connected yet. So that's what they mean by a wired system. When it becomes a system, it is connected. They have the potential for different types of connections whenever they interact with their environment. These connections become established with experiences. Connections that don't get strengthened fade. And the connections that get strengthened because they're practiced and used over and over again get stronger. So listen to what they're saying. They're saying some of the things that the behaviorists have said, but there are other aspects of what the behaviorists have said they don't like. There are some things that Chomsky has said too, not necessarily as it deals with syntax itself, but as it deals with, being creative, being generative, generating different types of sentences. Right here, different types of connections. These different theorists, they like to word it, to fit whatever their theory is, even though I see some commonality in all of them and differences. All right. So your brain has something called parallel processing and serial processing. So parallel processing will analyze different things at the same time. So one of the first things that a child will learn to do is request. So in requesting something, they're looking, the visual, they're looking at it, they're having to maintain attention for it. They might be reaching for it. So now you got the motor, you got all of these processing things. Remember, motor happens in the brain, vision happens in the brain. All of these systems, these information systems are happening at the same time so that the purpose is served. So the form that serve the same purpose are acquired first. So when they're requesting, let's say bottle, and they may say it, bottle, bottle, and they may reach. So that's how they decide what their first words may be. So language forms that serve the same purpose are acquired first. But parallel processing is what I'll ask you on an exam versus serial processing. Serial processing, here, this happens first, this happens second. It's like Chomsky, what Chomsky says. You know, first you have the thought, then you have the transformations, and then you have the surface structure. So that's serial processing, step 1, step 2, step 3. What they have found is the brain does a combination of both parallel and serial processing. Yes. Colleen. Well, requesting for bottle. They're reaching for it, looking at it, looking for it, reaching for it, looking at it, and maybe even saying it. So parallel, these different processes are happening at the same time. Brad, that was Brad. Yeah. All right. So during infancy, and remember, information processing is still, these are all still cognitive theories. Now, this isn't necessarily Piaget. They broke away from Piaget. We've got a whole chapter on Piaget. So Piaget is coming up. He's complicated, but cognitive theorists in general look at information processing, because cognition is understanding of the world through problem solving, logic. So any of those types of things, that is cognition. So infancy, these are some of the things that an infant has to do. They have to attend. Remember, you know, when we talk about learning, we're talking about paying attention, attend. Kids have to attend, right? They have to discriminate. They have to know if something is the same or different. When I'm looking at a bottle and I'm looking at a ball, I have to look at those two things and know that they are different things and not the same. But I'm looking at mommy and I'm looking at daddy and I'm looking at their faces. I have to know those are two different faces. Discrimination, and babies do this so quickly. Then they have to get some type of organizational system. You know, on your computer you have folders so you can organize your files. So the infant, the child has to do that as well. So cognitive theorists, they believe that the brain has compartments that can be used for organization so that the child can organize these different folders or compartments so that they can be able to place these words in memory and recall them, because they need to retrieve them quickly, because speech happens very quickly. So organization is very important. Memory is very important. You have working memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Working memory is what you're doing right here with me. You're using your working memory right now, because as I'm talking, you're remembering what I'm saying as you write your notes. Okay? That's your working memory. Short-term memory is probably what you'll do for the test. I'm hoping it'll go to long-term memory. And short-term memory can be just right after also, right after the class in a few minutes. That can also be short-term memory. Working memory is what's happening currently. The child also needs to be able to transferring it to one place to another as needed so that it can retrieve. The transfer is like retrieving the information. So all of these things are happening, these cognitive skills are happening within the brain of the child. These are all cognitive skills. So what I might ask you is this. Can you name some cognitive skills? And you would name this. Then I would want to know, well, then what are some language skills? Can anyone tell me what is a language skill? Come on, class. Go ahead and try. I won't scream at you. Oh, Brad is so brave. Okay, let's say Susan, brave too. Susan says phonemes. Okay, Susan, I'll help you out on that. A language skill would be articulation, speaking words. So you putting those phonemes together to create a word. Okay, Brad says listening. So we can interpret that in terms of language is being able to answer questions to a story, answering questions. That's language. All right. Grammatical skills. That's language. Requesting. That's language. Anyone else? Let's see. Abby's writing. Oh, Abby, you making me think. Yes, I would. Yes, because you're putting words together in a tune, yes, singing. No one's ever said that. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know if I can promise you next week, but the week after that, I'm going to put in a language test in content so you can look at the things we test for language versus what a psychologist might test for IQ. So, and the psychologists have two different ones. They have a verbal IQ, which is similar to our language test. And then they have the nonverbal IQ, which deals more with the cognitive kinds of skills, memory, attention, like, digits. How many digits can you read? They give you a list of digits and how many can you remember. Oh, I hate those things because I cannot remember it all. Yeah, Susan, good, Susan. But comprehension is two-bit comprehension, yes. Of auditory comprehension of a story, auditory comprehension of a sentence, yes. Very good, very good. Now, Brad, I'm not sure what that means. Using symbolism, because symbolism is cognition. What is that? Can you give it to me a little bit? Okay. All right. You said okay. All righty. So now, all right. Now, I want you to look at this little slide right here. It seems abstract, but it isn't. But, okay, a stimulus. You know what a stimulus is, right? A noise. Like right now somebody is mowing grass outside. It's disturbing me right now, but it's a stimulus. When I speak to you, it's a stimulus. My speech is a stimulus. So a stimulus is first perceived perceptually. So perceptually, it could be either way. For you, hearing my voice, since you can't see me, you're only perceiving me auditorially. However, you're looking at the PowerPoint. So you do have some type of perception of what I'm saying visually. So a stimulus is first perceived perceptually. So that makes sense, right? That's what you're doing right now. You're perceiving a stimulus. Then matched against stored abstractions. So when I say the word, any word that I say, like if I say the word dog, or anything that I am saying in my lecture, you can understand me pretty much okay, right? Because somewhere in your brain, you have stored abstractions or you recognize the pattern of my word, or you understand the meaning of my word, okay? So you match what I say with what has been stored in your brain so that you can comprehend what I say. Someone who is coming, English as a second language, They don't have the same stored abstractions or pattern recognitions or meaning associations that you would have as an first English language speaker. Okay, English is your first language. So they're going to have a little more difficulty trying to match. Now, when they have that difficulty, what does that mean in terms of this class? What's going to happen to them when they're trying to take notes? And they perceive the stimulus, but they're having difficulty matching. So how does that affect them in the class in terms of note-taking or in terms of understanding what? Abby's writing something. And Brad, come on, other class members. I want to know that you're here. Ayana, Colleen, let me see, I have to go scroll down. Donna, Ellen, Lauren, Sarah, Susan, Callie, writing or listening. Yeah, they could write longer, but that's what I was going for, Abby. Right. Yes. Sometimes they're going to be slower with writing the notes because they're like, oh my God, what did she just say? You know, sometimes they can't even write what I've said because they're trying to figure out what the word is so they can spell it. Yeah. So now let's go from there. Let's suppose you have a child with a language impairment. And he's in his environment, and let's say he's 3. Somebody says something to him, the parent. You know, the parent will have to say it over and over again, maybe make it shorter, emphasize some words, and then after many examples, the child may get it because his processing is slower. His processing is either slower or different because he's having some difficulty matching against stored abstractions. He's not recognizing the pattern, yes, in a different way, or associating the meaning. Yes, Susan, that's very good. Yeah, sometimes if you restate something in a different way instead of repeating it over and over again, the child will get it in that different way. But it is because of processing. It is because of cognition that he's not learning the language as quickly as his peers. Children who have these normal neuronal firings going on, zoom, 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 you know, the electrical activity is just zooming around, those connections are happening in the brain, they can do this very, very quickly. They will match very quickly. For you to understand me, think how fast your brain is processing to find the match of what my words are to what's in your brain. So anyway, and then it may undergo further processing, the stimulus. If you don't get it the first time, it may undergo further processing or elaboration through association with past experiences. So whatever experiences you've had in your life, you can relate to some of the things that I'm saying because you can go back and say, oh yes, I know what she's talking about because I know a little boy or a little girl that happened to. Or even when I was a kid, I remember I had to ask people, could you repeat that? I remember my daughter, she was 4 in gymnastics. The one that didn't start talking until 14 months. And we would be in gymnastics class. And I noticed that she wouldn't do things until she saw other people do it. You know, she would wait for someone else. I was like, does she not understand? Why is she waiting? It's kind of like she had to be sure of what the directions were by watching the other kids. And so I did find out that she had problems. My oldest child had problems with auditory information, auditory processing. But she was gifted at visual processing. So, okay, let me read what she says. That's right. Very good, Brad. That's excellent because her experiences, you know, she can't relate to it. So it's not only about understanding the word per se. It's like, what is the meaning, the relationship? What's going, what is it really? I have to do a conference call with a bunch of people in the room, and so I got to click on a link, and then I have to make a phone call. This is tomorrow morning, and I'm so nervous because I've never done that. And I talked to the secretary. I said, "Well, can you do it for me?" She said, "No." And so I called the company today. I said, "Well, now walk me through it." So I just click on this link, and I just dial the number, right? So I am so nervous that I'm going to mess up tomorrow, even though I know it's simple. It sounds very simple, but I'm having such fear with embracing this technology stuff. And anyway, so there you go. So yes. Now who said CAPD? Donna Smith. Yes, some people call that central auditory processing disorder. Some people question that it really exists. Some people say it does. Some people say it doesn't. But that's another class. Yeah, so Susan, so what did I do with my daughter? Well, I started teaching her, because I'm a speech pathologist, and I know about learning, as you will learn about learning behavior. Learning behavior, knowing these theories gives you the background for helping kids learn in different ways. So I began to teach her reading through whole word techniques, through visual processing, because my daughter could not, I found that she could not sound out words. But because I figured out her strength, and the schools, they didn't have time, they didn't want to do that. They teach one way to the whole class. And if you don't get it, too bad for you. She was able to advance in reading, and no one even knew that she had that problem. And then in third grade, she was able to sound out words. But in first and second grade, she could not. She just was not ready for it. But luckily, she had a mom that understood different learning styles, and I helped her through learning to visualize, learning to memorize the word, that kind of thing, do whole word type teaching instead of sound by sound teaching of reading. So there you go. So think about those kinds of things whenever you get your clients, if those of you who become speech pathologists. Don't be so narrow in your thinking. Read different fields. It helps you to understand your own field, because we are behaviorists. We are cognitivists. We are psychologists, all combined as speech pathologists. So we have to pick up a little bit of all these different areas in order to do our field, because communication is so broad. So for infants to process information for cognitive skills to develop, the cognitive parameters are there. They're automatically there. Repetition is required. Infants require more repeated rehearsals in order for information to be coded into long-term memory. So as their cognitive skills develop, what that means, all that means is that their ability to process information has become stronger and more efficient, because they started to use different strategies. So as cognitive skills develop, their strategies develop, and they can use information more efficiently. So how do you know cognitive skills are developing? Because of the way they use information now. Because we can't really see it in the brain, right? Oh, they can now, but when they did these theories, they could. So an infant, when they process information, they do discrimination. Now, there are several discriminative abilities. One is auditory. Auditory is whether there is a sound or not, right? When you do the hearing screening, do you hear the noise? Raise your hand. That's auditory. Phonetic, of course, would be a sound. That's phonetic. Frequency would be, is it a high pitch? I can't do it. That type of thing. High or low. Can you discriminate between something being high or low? Why would we care about that? Why is that important for an infant to know frequency, high or low? It gets into basic science. This is why Asher wants you to take those science courses, because we really need to become more science. Whoa, Abby, very good. Excellent, that's right. Because some of our sounds, that's the S sound. That's a high pitch. But a sound like it's low. It has a low frequency. S has a high frequency. Has a lower frequency than S. Those types of things. So it's important that they're able to discriminate, because it helps them to discriminate the phonetics as well. Because the sounds are frequencies. That's how sounds are. Sounds are just frequencies. All right, loudness. Whether something is louder, quiet, softer, high intensity or low intensity. And duration. Why is duration important in terms of discrimination skills for speech or language? No, nope. It has to do with phonetics. That's a good guess, though, Colleen. Let me see. Well, I guess eventually, Colleen, you want to be able to discriminate whether there is a pause or not, there's quiet or not quiet. But that's not exactly important for the infant. Not quite important, but oh, very good, Callie. Yes. Think about, Colleen. I know some of you, this is your first class. Okay, think about the sound B. It's like a pop, right? And then you think about the sound S. So how does the brain decide that you are producing a B or an S? Because you don't say B, you don't say S. No, you don't. You say the word. You say the word, right? You say, what's the S word? Sock. But the brain knows that there's an S in there. How does the brain know this? Based on what I just told you, based on this PowerPoint, how would the brain know this? Come on, my brave students who aren't afraid of Dr. Gibson saying, nah, that's wrong. Oh, Colleen's going to be brave. Come on, Brad is usually the brave one. Brad and who's my other brave one? Is it Donna? Susan. I thought Colleen was brave. Anybody? Nobody's going to help me? No, the brain does not hear the S sound. Brad, don't be scared, Brad. Nope. Based on what I just told you, we feel based on what I just said now, come on, little Yasmin. Come on, little Yasmin. You can do it. Like, little Yasmin is going to give it to me. Okay, little Yasmin is on the right, but it's too general. I need specifics. Because of what? How in the world does the brain know that that's an S? He doesn't know S. How does he know? S doesn't even sound like S in the word sock. We're not saying S sock, S-ock. We're saying sock. How in the world? Oh, Susan. Pattern recognized. Come on, look right here. Look right here. Somebody, come on, help me out. Let me see my memory. Right here. Somebody say it. Frequency. No. Frequency, yes. S has a different frequency than then O as an ok, or k, sock, ok, sock. So the brain doesn't hear, you know, the alphabet. The brain hears the frequency. Brain hears frequency. The brain hears what else? What else will the brain hear? It's right here on this page. Loudness, excellent. What else? Duration, yes. The brain hears the duration of the S versus the A versus the K. The K is very short. Sock. The brain, that's how the brain knows, oh my gosh, they're putting together the word sock. You know, that type of thing. So in terms of speech, the brain isn't spelling it. The brain is more phonetic. You know, so phonetic is different than spelling. So you'll learn that for those of you who haven't had phonetics. You'll learn that in phonetics. So the brain interprets frequency, loudness, duration. That's what the brain interprets whenever we're talking about speaking. All right. So this is called information processing, and these are all cognitive skills. So, all right, at 7 months, when a child hears a word, the child will elicit a certain behavior. For somebody may say, Daddy's coming home, so the child may get excited. Daddy, Daddy. 12 months, the child, because he's talking, may call out the name. It could be a picture of something, it could be an object, and the child may say, bottle, bottle. It can elicit a name. Or a person could come up and say, and the child may say, Mommy. So a stimulus here elicits a name. At 18 months, you don't need a ball for the child to say ball. But at 12 months, generally you need to show them, and then they will say it. But at 18 months, they'll like, ball, ball, where's the ball, where are balls, that type of thing. So the child begins to be able to process information more efficiently and quickly as the child gets older, because his neural structures have become more developed because of the connections that they have made. I am not going to ask you to memorize this kind of stuff. Now, you do need to know, of course, that at 12 months, children say their first words, those kind of general milestones. But I won't ask you, I won't say, under information processing, what happens at 12 months? I will not do that to you. I think that's kind of unfair. I mean, if somebody did it for me, I'm not sure that I would understand it. So, I mean, I would remember that. But I know that at 12 months, they're saying their first words. And if you ask them or show them something, they'll say it. And at 18 months, you don't have to show it, and then they'll say it without seeing it. All right, so that is the information processing theory. Information processing theory. Let's look back over the theories just briefly. Information processing theory, you have the semantic theory. You have the syntactical theory. Oh, I didn't do my other one. Syntactical theory and the behaviorist theory. Okay? So you have semantics, syntax, behaviorist, information processing theory. Okay, now we're going to talk about a different theory. And this theory is called social interactionist theory. This theory became very popular in the 90s, when pragmatics became the word of the day, or the, therapy of the day. Everybody started doing pragmatic therapy. Pragmatics has to do with how you use language. So let's go back. Let's go back for one. No, I don't have to go back. Syntax has to deal with the form of language. Form of language. Can you see that? With syntax, you have a form. Semantics has to do with the content of language. Content. Pragmatics has to do with use of language. So you're going to hear these words: content, form, and use. So whenever you think content. I want you to think semantics. I want you to think semantic theory. I want you to think Bloom. When you hear form, I want you to think syntax. I want you to think Chomsky. When you hear use, I want you to think of pragmatics, and I want you to think of social interactionists. This is probably the most popular form of teaching language. Vygotsky is the big name under social interactionists. Vygotsky came up with this idea of proximal development. Proximal development would be the opportunities that family and others give to children to help them learn language. And what that means is that children learn from around them. And this all sounds the same. Children learn from what is happening around them. So proximal development. And then as children get older and more development, you don't have to be as close to them for children to learn. It can be, you know, they can learn from situations that are farther away. They can learn from situations that happened yesterday instead of just today. So proximal development, and that changes as the child gets older. But Vygotsky was the first person that introduced this type of idea of including the family. Think about Chomsky and syntax. It wasn't really about the family there. It was more just about, it was more about the lad, you know, what's inside, you know, and you do have to have the environment to give the child an opportunity to use it, but it wasn't that important. It wasn't that important. For the behaviorists, the environment was all that was important, and it wasn't what was inside of you. Biology was not important. And the people who did the semantics, they said, yes, the environment is important, but it's about content. It's about vocabulary words and what they mean. Then the social interactionist said, well, the words mean nothing if you're not interacting. So it's not just about meaning. It's about putting that meaning in an interactive situation. So this is a compromise between nature and nurture. Children communicate and interact socially with other people way before they are able to produce language forms. So Vygotsky says, oh, people, your language starts in day one when the child looks at you. That's when language starts. So, social interactionists. Focus is on pragmatics. It is the intent to communicate. An intent to communicate. The intent to communicate then shapes the language form. The mother will respond to the intent and then provide language. So the child looks, points. So pragmatics has to do with eye gaze, pointing, that kind of thing. Eye gaze and pointing. The mother looks and says, oh, you want your toy? And then the mother gives the toy to the child. So then the child learns the word toy. Well, you know, let's see, train. No, that's a hard word. Well, let's just wait and say train. And then the child hears the word train, however they hear it, and, you know, the child may produce the word tame or take, something like that. So, but if the language form was chosen and produced because of the intent to communicate. Here, the parents are very important, and the children are not passive, like the behaviorist said. They're just imitators. Oh no, the children are very active participants. They initiate. They demand. They're very active to participants in language development. So those would be your social interactions, that children learn best when they play. Play therapy also came from these social interactions as well, in a little bit of a different way than the cognitive people, because here you have to have, it's more like a group type setting, because you got to have that interaction with another person for language. Yes, that's right. The behaviorists see children as more passive. That's right. The social interactionists, yeah, okay. Well, Bradley, you like to spoil my the ending of my movies, so it's all right. So, social interactionists, they do believe that there are innate cognitive, so they like Piaget, and innate linguistic abilities. So they kind of like the nativists as well. So they do believe in innate cognitive and innate linguistic abilities. They believe that these abilities are not the most important, though. They believe that people are the most important factor in learning language. So, woo-wee, I know you are tired. You hope this is the last one, don't you? Last theorist. So, like the nativists, social interactionists try to discover what is common among the language. So they believe in universals. They believe in universals like the nativists. So they believe that the languages across the country, across the world, you know, that they have some similar common characteristics. But for the social interactionist, it's going to be the caregiver, the parents. They're going to be important. So what kind of research you think came out of this field? People who believe in social interactionists, who adopted this theory, what do you think they focused on in their research? Anybody? Based on what they think is important. That's right. Thank you, Colleen. The parents. So now people started looking at, how do parents talk to their children? How do parents talk to their children whose children are doing well? So they say, okay, here's a very verbal child. Let's go into their homes and let's look at how parents are talking. Now remember, all these other studies, they were investigating how children talk. They took language samples of the children. They tested the children. It's children, children, children. Now we got a group of researchers who are saying, let's look at the caregivers and the child. So that's why now you hear all of this research about, you know, talking to your child. That's from these people. You hear all this research about reading. You know, vocabulary is so important to reading development. So if you talk to your child a lot, that is correlated to your child's vocabulary. Children with high vocabularies have high reading aptitude. That's correlated with reading aptitude. So all of that, though, starts with the caregiver talking to the child based on the research of going into homes and talking to parents and videotaping mothers and fathers. So social interactionists. So where are you? Do you know which camp you want to belong to yet? So they discovered mothering. They said, listen guys, mothers talk to their little babies different than they talk to their school age, different than they talk to their teenagers, and different than they talk to each other. So babies, they get this special way that parents communicate. So parents use motherese. You're going to need to know motherese. Use short, simple sentences. Mothers talk about objects that the child is attending to. So what is the child looking at? Then you look at what they're looking at. You let the child start the topic. You look at what they're looking at and you start talking about it. You say, oh yeah, that's a blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so soft. Oh, it's green. You know, la, 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 whatever mother said. Or you bring it right to the child so that the child can attend. Remember, one of the cognitive skills needed, attending. What's the point of talking about something to an infant who can barely move if it's not in his sight where he can attend to it? So, mothers, we repeat our own utterances over and over again. We do. We love it. We repeat the child utterances. We think it's so cute. And we didn't even know that what we were doing, that was helping language. But it is. And it does. And it has its own name. It's called motherese. Some people, lay people may call it baby talk. She's doing baby talk. I know it. Yes, little Yasmin, they can do these things, but we get the name for it, motherese, because when they did this research, 90%, 95% of the time, kids were with their mothers or a female caregiver. So that's why they called it motherese. But in today's world, if they were doing it in today's world, they may call it parenting, or caregiver-ese, or daycare-ese, teacher-ese. Don't get me started, little Yasmin. All right, so we repeat the child utterances. We use a slightly higher pitch and exaggeration. I mean, I do that when I teach class because I'm trying to keep all of you paying attention, just like the motherese. Trying to say, pay attention to me, people. All right. They introduce pauses. Also, we'll pause, we wait. Are they going to smile? And once that baby smiles at us, oh my gosh, we melt. And we start right back again with that high pitch and repeating our own utterances. We use questions and commands. You want it? You want it? You want a cookie? A cookie? Oh, you want a cookie? Don't you want a cookie? So funny. I just remember how I used to do it with my babies. And I said, when my 7-week-old, I found I use a higher pitch, and when I noticed it, I stopped it. Why do we do that? Brad, I'm sorry I call you Bradley, because that's what I see on the screen. I am not sure why we do it, but it's like a natural thing to do with someone so little and helpless. It's like we get into this other mode. But that is an interesting research question that I don't think I've read anyone has answered that question. I mean, any research paper that I've read, I don't recall anybody saying why. It could be, I can guess, let me guess, the brain. You know, the young brain likes higher pitch sounds because they themselves have high pitch sounds, voices, because of the shape of their vocal tract being shorter and shorter than an adult. Because, you know, they sound sort of, you know, higher pitched, I'm guessing. Anyway. They can only take in babies. Oh, I bet you this is it. Listen. Babies only can take in so much information because their brain, their working memory is but just so big. So I do know that as a fact, as a research fact. So probably with the mothers, that when we're talking to our babies, if we say too much, we don't get reinforced. But if we say it shorter, it gets reinforced by the baby looking at us. You know, maintaining eye contact. I bet you if we go too long, the baby looks away. We do it just right, the baby stays with us. So the baby is actually training us. How about that as a theory? I like it. What can we call it, class? Yes, we could come up with our theory, and we could, you know, come up with a project, write a grant, get some money, and go into homes and see how babies are training the parent. Because, you know, it just made me think about that because my neighbors tell me that my dog Buddy has me trained. And the more I think about it, I'm thinking I'm training Buddy. But actually, Buddy lets me know when he wants a treat. How did I figure out that Buddy wants a treat? And he'll do it, and I give him a treat, and Buddy grins at me and you know, pets me, you know, on my leg with his paw. And I'm so thrilled by that pet, I go give him a treat. So my neighbors look at me and they say, he's got you trained really well. So now I'm wondering, yeah, babies. Now I'm wondering about these babies. Hey, we think we have power, but then they have the control. I think that's interesting. It might get me on the Today Show or Good Morning America or something. Or either in the Crazy House. Anyway, all right, okay. Speech Act Theory. Okay, all right. So the Speech Act Theory has to do with pragmatics. And it's the social interactionist. It's under that same umbrella. And what it's saying is that, you know, just like with all of the different theories, there's a developmental stage. And so children have different stages of pragmatics, of speech acts. And the act that happens at about 12 months is called the locutionary act. These are words, locution, words. The illocution act, or force, is the intention to communicate. So here, this may start anywhere like 7, 8 months on, you know, on up. Then you have the perlocutionary act. Here the child is looking at his mom and seeing, is the mom angry? Is the mom happy? Is the mom sad? And then the child reacts to that. So that's the perlocutionary act. Here this happens very young, and they don't really, you know, at this point, they don't have any words. All right. And I think I showed you this before. Here are some brain cells, and they have not been stimulated. And here are some brain cells that have been stimulated through talking to your baby, through reading to your baby, through allowing your baby to explore, touch things, and play with different kinds of toys. This is what happens to your baby's brain on play, your baby's brain on love, your baby's brain on talk. This is what happens. This is what happens to your baby's brain on isolation, on lots of crying. Now, I don't know if that's true right there. I'm sorry. That's a Terry Gibson theory. I have no evidence. So just this is just unstimulated. I just want to take that back. I was just trying to brainwash you again. All right. Any questions? Any questions? I want to take a little break from theories. Don't you want to take a little break from theories? Because we're getting ready to go to Piaget. You want to take a little break from theories? I need some feedback from somebody. Okay, thank you, Yasmin. All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to move forward. It doesn't mean to take a break from me. I'm sorry. We're going to go to grammatical morphemes. So we're going to do a little bit of grammar. All right, because you're going to need this for your language sample. All righty, let's see here. There are 14 grammatical morphemes. All right, this is coming out of the work of Brown. We haven't talked about Brown. He's syntax, but not as, he developed, you know, away from Chomsky, but still syntax. It's Brown and Miller, and there's another person. Can't remember. But Brown is the main person. So the 14 grammatical morphemes. Here they are here. ing, plural s, the preposition in, preposition on, possessive S, regular past tense ED, irregular past, regular third person singular, articles, the copula, contractible, contractible auxiliary, uncontractible copula, uncontractible, it should be uncontractiable auxiliary, and irregular third person singular. I cannot believe I didn't catch that. And right here is a typo. I cannot believe I didn't catch that this is the same thing. All right. But anyway, these are the 14 grammatical morphemes. Well, you know what grammar is. And a morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit for language. Now remember phoneme? Phoneme was the smallest meaningful unit for sound. But morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit for language. So ing is a morpheme. Okay? It is called a bound morpheme because it cannot stand alone. So eating. When you add ing, you change the tense of eating, of eat, excuse me. S. It can't stand alone. But when you add a S to a word like dog, it means more than one dog. All right? So it adds some extra meaning, semantics to the word, but it takes the grammar to add to the semantics. So the grammar and the semantics are together, intertwined. Yes, S is a bound morpheme. Now, N is not a bound morpheme. N is a morpheme, a word. A word is a morpheme as well. N is a preposition. And it's one of the early morphemes that a child will say. But it adds to the grammar of their sentence. So it is a grammatical morpheme because it starts to build upon the development of prepositional phrases. So in and on are free morphemes. They can stand alone. Free morphemes. Possessive S, ED are all bound morphemes. So now irregular past would be a free morpheme. So eat, the irregular past of eat would be ate. So children will have to learn that as the irregular past tense as a language form as they get older in order to become more adult-like in their syntax. The regular third person singular. Oh, we're going to go through all of these. Let me go through the PowerPoints. I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't need to do it right here. Okay. So ing is a present progressive. It's a present progressive grammatical morpheme. It makes a verb present progressive. It's like running, cooking. Now ing is obligatory. Obligatory means that it must be in the sentence. And so this is all for English. So when you say he is eat, you have to say ing. He is eating. If you just say he is eat, we consider that grammatically incorrect, right? In terms of the typical English way, unless it is a part of your culture to say he is eat. Then you can say that's a cultural difference. But in terms of what they consider standard English or American English, mainstream English, they got all kinds of names for it. It is obligatory to add the ing to eat when you use is. He is eating. Or are. They are eating. You are eating. We are eating, if you remember your conjugations. So ing, plural S, this is obligatory, meaning it is required when more than one object is referenced. Okay. In and on. It is obligatory whenever you are saying, whenever it is a prepositional phrase, you have to use the preposition and a prepositional phrase. The cookies are in the cookie jar. In the cookie jar is the prepositional phrase. You don't want to say 2 cookies are the cookie jar. You see how it even changes the meaning of the word, of the meaning of the sentence for the child. Possessive S, it is obligatory whenever you are talking about an object belonging to something else. Regular past tense, obligatory when the child is speaking in the past tense. You have to use the ED if you're talking about something that happened yesterday versus today. Hold on. Irregular past tense. Right here are your examples. Regular third person singular. Third person is he, she, and it, because it's the singular one. So, you know, I eat, you eat, he eats. So now you have to add the S when it's regular third person singular. Okay. Articles, a, and the. I think everybody probably remembers those from school. Now, contractible copula. The copula are the be verbs, is, are, and am. And of course, if you went past tense, I believe you can do past tense, were and was. They may be used as a whole or contracted, I'm or I am. It's obligatory when a child is using a be verb when preceding an adjective or a noun. So I am hungry. Here, hungry describes how you feel. It is an adjective. I'm hungry. Okay? The verb is am. The verb is not hungry. Am is the verb. In this way, it's a be verb, so they call it the copula. You can contract it. You can make it a contraction. So therefore, it is also a contractible copula. Contractible auxiliary. These you know from school as helping verbs. You have is, are, and am, was, were. He is running. So here you have how many morphemes, well, how many grammatical morphemes do you have in this sentence? He is running. How many grammatical morphemes of the 14? No, I didn't say morphemes. How many grammatical morphemes do you have? Nope. Give me another one. Nope, not yet. That's right, 2. Yay! I think you named every number. You have here. This is a grammatical morpheme, and ing is the grammatical morpheme. Is and ing. The auxiliary, contractible auxiliary, and the progressive tense. Okay. You're going to have to count morphemes. That's why I'm saying it. Those are the grammatical morphemes. Now, let's go back. A morpheme can be a word as well. So I want you to count now in this sentence the morphemes and the grammatical morphemes. Now you're going to go back to your original. 4, right. There you go. Yes, okay. Now, uncontractible copula. Now you see this one, here's the example. Was. He was. Now you can't do was. I mean, you can't contract it. He was. That doesn't happen. So this would be uncontractable. He was hungry. Uncontractable auxiliary, I was eating, because you can't say I was eating. No, you can't say that. So I was eating. Okay, so now let's go back up. What is lecture 4? Hold on, let me go back down. Oh, God, Piaget. Okay. All right. Oh, there it is, right here. Now, looking at this list, which one of these you think is the easiest? The ing. So this list pretty much is in order as to when they come in for children. Okay, when they come in for children. This is an easiest one. These are the easier ones up here, and down here this is the hard one, the hardest. Well, I was gonna say hardest, but these bottom ones down here are hard. They're obligatory, yes. They all have an obligatory occasion because they're necessary in the English language if you're going to speak like an adult, because that's what a child is eventually trying to get to, right? The adult way of speaking. So, but it's for standard English, yes, it is obligatory. For some dialects, they may not be. For some dialects, plural is not obligatory. Like 50 cent, that's not obligatory in African American English. In standard English, it is obligatory. So you say 50 cents. So if you have a standard English speaker and they say 50 cents, then you will have to mark them wrong on the test. If you have an AAE speaker and they say 50 cents, you have to mark it right on the test because that's part of their culture. Now, AAE speaker doesn't mean that you're black. Standard English speaker doesn't mean that you're white only. Okay? You have black people who are standard English speakers. So they will get, if they're standard English speakers, and if they don't use plurals, then they get marked wrong. Black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. White, doesn't matter. If you're a standard English speaker, it's not based on your race. But we have a tendency to do that. It's a black person, they must speak African American English. No, not all black people speak AAE. Your teacher does, not I do, but some of my colleagues do not. It just depends on their background. And if they've made efforts to code switch and change it, I'm too lazy. I only made efforts to code switch a little bit, and then I get lazy. I'm just like, So anyway, and also AAE, there are white speakers who speak African American English if they grew up in neighborhoods where the majority of the people spoke African American English. Asian, Hispanic people can speak and have, I mean, I've met them, they speak AAE because they grew up in that culture. So I don't want you to make the mistake that you see a black person coming into the your room and they say 50 cent. If they're standard English speakers, you have to mark it wrong. So you have to decide that whether or not you're talking to a black person who is a standard English speaker, or whether you're talking to a black person who is an AAE speaker. So that means that before you give a test to any child or an adult, you need to find out their language. And you need to pull the language characteristics from the ASHA website if you don't know it, and so that you will know what is appropriate for that language or that culture. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, I just can't name all the languages. Japanese, Mandarin, Spanish, it doesn't matter. Yes. Any of them. Any children. Any person from another culture. All right. Okay, now, all right, I gave you a little bit of break, not much. I'm going to, let's see, what time is it? 7. Oh, gosh, I have to go on. I'm so sorry. This will be a hard test. It's 7 o'clock. I just want to make sure we cover everything before the semester ends. So you're just going to have to just be on the ball. All right, let's do a little review, a little talking on what advantages does brain plasticity and a self-organizing network have for children learning language. Any takers on that question? That sounds like a good test question, doesn't it? What advantages does brain plasticity and a self-organizing network? Well, actually, brain plasticity and self-organizing network, that's the same thing. Oh, Ellen! Yes! Quickly retrieve words. What else? There's so many things. Quickly learn. Good, Brad. Oh, no, Brad, I'm going to make you do a little more. Learn what? Quickly learn. That's too broad. That's too broad. Related to language. Brad said, really, Terry, really. Oh, I like that even better, Brad. That's impressive. Multiple words for similar objects, synonyms, huh? It's easier to learn, but you can learn old too, Colleen. Don't forget that. Because I hang on to that theory that I can still learn. Thank you. All right, so let's go to the next one. We're going to recognize. Yes, very good. What is, let's go back to brain plasticity. Well, what about children? That's for normal children. What about children who have a cognitive impairment, or children who've had a stroke or chemotherapy and their neural system doesn't work as well? How is neuroplasticity important there? How is this oh, my goodness, Susan, did I even finish the sentence? You can retrain. That's why the self-organizing network is so important, because that's the reason we have jobs. because of the self-organizing network and brain plasticity, we can retrain different pathways, different connections in the brain, so that the child or the adult can pull up the word, but from a different direction. You know what I mean? They can just go around the damage in some way. Good job. I see Lauren writing something. She must be writing something long. Okay. What is LAD? Just give me you don't have to tell me what it means, but what does LAD mean? The language acquisition device. Oh, was Lauren writing, she was on my next question. Psych. Is she saying psych like smart mouth psych? And its relationship to language. And it holds all language info and transforms syntactic language into grammars of the native language. All right, Lauren. Okay, let's see if I can come up with something here a little better. So what do you think about LAD? Do you think there's a language acquisition device? Do you think there is some, or at least some innateness to language itself? Anybody? I need to move. Maybe I have to move down because nobody's writing. Can y'all hear me? Nobody's answering my question. Do you have any opinion? If you have no opinion, just put no opinion, so at least I know you heard me. Okay, Skeptic. Thank you. Brad broke the ice. The rest of the people are just chicken. Oh, Susan. Susan is really brave. She says, I don't remember this at all. So LAD, Susan, when you go back to review, it's under Chomsky. You will see it on the test, so go back to review. I do think that there are some innateness to language. That's just my opinion. And of course, I believe there's some innateness to cognitive skills. I think that we do have some innate things that we are kind of have a tendency to do as humans, and the environment helps us to develop those tendencies to our potential. And if you come from an environment where maybe it isn't as nurturing, then the potential at an early age may not be reached. But because of brain plasticity, I think that once you get out of that non-nurturing environment, that you can reach your potential, that you can further it. It'll just take you longer. It might be a little harder work, a little harder to do. You got to be more motivated, but you can go a little further than maybe what your environment allowed you to do. Oh yeah, no, it is definitely not the main mode of language acquisition. You're right about that, Brad. Okay. Can someone give me an example of a phrase, of a semantic phrase that would show agent? Uh-oh, I'm getting, no. All right, Kristen, yes. Sally drove. Sally is the agent. Ellie sang. All right. What about locative? Tim kicked. Y'all are making big sentences. I'm just talking about two-word utterances. What about locative? Oh, yes. I went where? To the game. To school, yes. Go home. All right, good. Experiencer. Ha-ha. I got you on this one. Woo-hoo. Uh-oh, oh, I think you're right. Like, oh no, I don't have you. No, Ayana, not gave. Oh, that's a good one. Hated. It is how he feels. Yes, I'd have to give that to you, Ellen. Very good. Oh, this is a good. I can't wait to see my test scores. All right. How do social interactionists fill the gap between the nativist and the behaviorist? Come on now, see, I know when people are a little bit hesitant, they're like, oh, do I? Anybody? Oh, thank you, Yasmin. Okay, good, Yasmin, and good, Brad, but that's, what does that mean? That's too general for both of you. Too general. I want more. I want more specifics. All you did was reword that sentence I had on the power. Oh, wait a minute, Brad said something. Okay, parents. Brad said something about, Abby's right, parents, and, oh Lord, I can't read what Brad said. Oh, Brad, that's it. That it's inherent or innate and shaped by the environment. Yes, very good. It lets me know that you have more specifics about the theory itself versus just saying something general about, just saying, oh, they filled the gap between nature and nurture. But do you know what the gap they filled? What was that gap? So, yes, those are the way that's the way okay. Okay. So now we'll talk a little bit about PIJ, and then I'll give you a little time to so your test doesn't start until 8:30. It's 7:16. I'm going to go till about 7:45, and then if you like, I can open your test at 8 o'clock. Would you like that? And you can take it at 8, but you have to be done by 8:30. Okay. Oh, thank you, Sarah. That's a good reinforcement, Sarah. She has 3 S's. That makes me feel good. Oh, Susan Donovan says no. Susan, you may be outvoted. Why, Susan? Oh, she wants review time. Oh, class, I want to talk to Susan a little bit. Because I do have it set for 8:30. I need to, everybody, she's a brave soul. I know people who wouldn't even answer. They would be like, no, I don't want to get the classes set. Very brave, Susan. I like that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Jean Piaget. Because I'm old. Jean Piaget. Piaget. I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. He likes a combination of nature and nurture. He thinks that is responsible for cognitive development, but he says that the most important thing for language is cognition. Without cognition, you don't get language. Adaptations to the environment help humans to understand the environment. So as our environment changes, we begin to understand the environment. And how do we change the environment for the infants? Well, first we have them sitting, because they can't move, in these little chairs, these little, seats, like, I don't know, car seats or whatever we put them in, these little seats. And then we adapt the environment for the child by moving them to the next place, and they get to see a different view. And then eventually we may lay them on a blanket, on their stomachs. We'll put them on their backs. We'll put them on their stomachs. As you do each of these different kinds of things, it helps that child to understand the environment. So, as we get older, we start walking around and we start, looking at the door. And we know, oh, we got to push the door to open it. And then we realize there's a knob. We got to turn it to open it. And then eventually we learn there's a key. We learn the function of the key to put it into. As we manipulate our environment, that's how we learn language. We learn to understand the environment. We learn about processing. Our processing skills become better. We learn better strategies, and then we learn better language. Yeah, causality is part of it. Yes, there's means, ends, and there's causality. Oh, yes, Brad, you got it. But now, here are some words, vocabulary words, I need for you to know before we get started. Because Piaget uses these words, and you need to know what he means. He uses the word schema a lot. So schema is a cognitive structure, is what they call it, for processing, identifying, organizing, and storing info. So he'll say the child develops a schema. And the schema is the way that the child sees, let's take the word dog. The schema is the way the child sees the dog and how the child organizes what a dog is in the brain. So a schema of a dog for a child might be, it has 4 legs and a tail and it barks. That's a schema for the child. All right. So a child's schema may initially be different from the adult schema until the child gets to, know more about the dog. He'll add more details, as he's problem solving, exploring, learning about the dog. So the word assimilation. A new stimulus fits into an existing schema. So let's take the schema of dog. The only thing, let's take away the word bark because that messes up my example. So the schema of dog for the young child is he has 4 legs and a tail. Okay? 4 legs and a tail. That's a dog because that's what he has a dog in his house. He goes to a friend's house. He sees another animal and he sees that animal has 4 legs and a tail. He calls it a dog. But the problem is, it's a cat. So he puts this assimilation, this cat, in the same schema as the dog. It's called assimilation. So he'll call the cat dog because it has 4 legs and a tail. Because right now, he hasn't differentiated between a cat and a dog. So all animals with 4 legs and a tail would be assimilated into the schema of dog. All right. Then you have accommodation. Accommodation New schemas are created for information that does not fit the existing schemata. All right. So now he hears the cat go, meow, meow. He says, oh my God, he doesn't sound like my dog. So now that one is different. So now he creates a schema for cat. That's accommodation. So now he has a totally different category. He has a different animal thing, cat versus dog. The same thing may go for like cups versus a plate, or they may have bigger schemas, animals versus transportation, or animals versus foods. And from the food schema, they'll break them up into categories. Yes. His schema that he had with his dog, as he learns more about his dog, he will keep that with the dog because it matches what he knows as his dog. But the cat, the meow, would be different from the dog schema. Okay, but he will start with assimilating like things together, and then they accommodate as they begin to find out differences. They start to accommodate. Equilibrium is the balance between assimilation and accommodation. So is the child in the brain, you have this, well, I'm assimilating, I'm taking in all of this new information, but now it's getting imbalanced because there are some things that don't fit. So now I need to do more accommodation so I can achieve a balance. Equilibrium is something that the body, the brain, your nervous system, it's just what the body wants to do all the time. So and if the child can't get that equilibrium, then there is confusion. So children who aren't learning as fast or as quickly, they may have confusion and not do as much of the accommodation and keep animals in the same grouping. A cow may be a dog. And they start out that way, where cows may be a dog, cats may be a dog when they're very young, but then they quickly begin to learn the differences. And that's called fast mapping. But these are the definitions of words that Piaget uses when he starts talking about his cognitive theory. He has cognitive stages, and these stages build upon one another. He says intellectual growth is cumulative. So what you learn from one stage builds to the next stage. You don't just lose what you learn from stage 1 to stage 2. They're all cumulative and build upon each other. It's integrative and expanding. So dog schema, assimilation, and then not all animals are dogs. So he has to accommodate for the animals who are not dogs. So then they start doing these different categories. That is why when you look at the language test, when I bring it in, we're going to relate the language test to these theories. As a speech pathologist, they will have children do categories. Can you name all the fruits that you can think of? All the foods, animals, clothing. I don't know if any of you are speech assistants, but you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is coming from a Piagetian approach. Do I have any speech assistants in the class? You gotta be kidding. Well, that's one no. No speech assistants, speech teachers, really? This is the first time. Wow, okay. I'm talking to a bunch of newbies. But Bradley says, I just do that as a daddy. So Brandon, you're ahead of the game. You're already becoming a speech pathologist. So here are Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development. You have the sensory motor stage, birth to 2 years. So look at this, using their senses and moving around. So here you get things in the mouth because they're using their mouths to taste. This is how they learn. I know you don't want them to do this, but I'm just saying that's how they learn about their environment, through vision, through hearing, through taste, through touch. What's the last one? Hearing, smell. I know there was one, supposed to be 5. So in motor is they begin to move. They begin to look at their hands and move their fingers, move their feet, put their feet in their mouths. All of that is sensory motor stage. This is the period that they're exploring their own body, they're exploring their world, trying to figure things out. And so this goes from birth to 24 months. Then you have pre-operational stage. Here you have some more of the symbolic thinking role. So you see symbolic. So age 2, they're going to be using words. So words are symbols. 2 to 7. So this is from 2 years old, toddler age to school age, this period here. Then you have the concrete operation stage. This is school age children. So here you're getting into logical processes, academics, things like that. Formal operation stage is abstract thinking, 12 to adulthood. Here, we begin to think more about the future, or we begin to invent things, and just a lot of different ideas coming up. But all of these, this is cognitive development, not language development. Cognitive development. But this sensory motor stage developed is the important thing for us, because this is the area where children first begin to learn language, according to Piaget. According to Piaget, the child must learn certain cognitive skills prior to learning language. And I have to tell you that I really bought into this because on one of my first cases in 1982, or 83, I had a little boy come to me. Nobody wanted to work with him. He had an IQ of about 40 or 50, and the speech pathologist said in the schools they're not going to work with him because his IQ levels are too low. He is, he's doing his potential, and that's it. And I was a private speech pathologist working in a clinic, and I said to myself, you know what? People train dogs to do tricks. You mean to tell me this kid is lower than a dog? Is that what you're trying to say? I just could not believe how people would just give up on children, even with low IQs. If nothing else, maybe speech isn't the goal. Why can't you teach him to take his daddy's hand and lead him to the refrigerator instead of throwing himself on the floor for a tantrum? Teach him a gesture or point to a picture that he has to go to the bathroom. It's going to take longer. It's going to take many more points. Let's teach him something. Teach him how to play. So with this little kid, that's what I did. I went to Piaget. I said, okay, maybe I need to work with some attention. Maybe I need to work with eye contact. Because the thing is, if we're not looking at the same thing at the same time, it's hard for him to know and follow what you want him to do. Let's find the reinforcement. I went to the behaviorist. What does he like? Let's do interactive play. But I want the play to build on cognitive skills. So I wanted to know, does this child know that this object is permanent? Is the object gone once I cover it up? So I got a ball. Let him touch the ball. We felt the ball. I said ball. I looked at him. I said ball. see if he liked the ball. He threw it, but he didn't know how to throw. I taught him how to throw the ball. I went to go get the ball. I covered the ball up, and he went into his self-stem. Self-stem. I was like, oh, it sucks. So I uncovered the ball, gave him the ball, played with the ball, gave him a treat, covered the ball back up. He went into his self-stem. Okay. I took his hand to the sheet of the blanket, let him lift the blanket and say, oh, ball, kick the ball. Oh my God, I don't know how many times we did it, but eventually he looked at me, he looked at the blanket, he uncovered the ball, picked up the ball, and threw it. His parents were thrilled, because they said he never played. He would just sit and self-stem all day long or throw a tantrum. So they gave up on the kid because his IQ was too low. But because I was in a private setting, I was able to take the kid and show the parents how to do some communicative kinds of things, and taught the kid to take the grandfather's hand, to take him, use my hand. First I use my hand, take me to what you want. Show me what you want, because he can't say it at this point. So I want you to be one of those thinkers if you get in this field. You know, I don't want you to be a person that judges another person by test alone. All right, so I used some of Piaget's ideas with this child. Okay, Piaget, the stages are not independent of each other. So, meaning that stage 1, sensory motor, you know, you can see there's a little overlap, 24 months and 2 years. So this has to happen so that this can happen. This happens so that this can happen. So they're not independent. The ages are not absolute. So a child may be 28 months here, still in the sensory motor stage. A child over here in concrete operations might be 6. So, you know, these things, you just don't want to take them as if they're the Bible, you know. There are lots of variability within all children. And according to Piaget, children pass through these stages in the order. This one first, this one second, this one third, this one fourth. Now I can tell you, other researchers find that that's not necessarily true, that they can be going through sensory motor and pre-operational stage at the same time. So let's talk a little bit about the sensory motor development. You have perception. This is the process by which the person selects, organizes, integrates, and interprets sensory stimuli. You know that from another definition. Distancing. This is something you don't know. Distancing. This is a principle, a perceptual principle, that lets you know that his cognitive structures are developing, are advancing. That distancing lays the foundation. Now remember, this is Piaget. There are people who disagree with this. That distancing lays the foundation for language, all right? For example, a toy truck represents a real object that can be manipulated to a child. So a child sees a toy truck, you hand it to them, you put it in their hand, it's right there. It's a close distance, it's right there. Now, you take the truck away and you show them a picture of a truck. A picture of a truck is a further distance away from the real truck, cognitively. But the child still recognizes it as a truck. So you show him a picture and he says truck. You know that child's cognitive skills, strategies have grown, because now they can distance themselves from the object. They don't need the object to know that this is a truck. And then They don't even need a picture anymore. They can do just an abstraction. The word truck, they'll start saying the word truck. Or they hear the word truck and they know what you're talking about. So then it becomes even more distant or more abstract. So you go to a concrete object, to a picture that is less concrete, to a word that is abstract. So those are distancing. That's what distancing is. It is a perceptual principle that affects cognitive changes that lay the foundation for language. So when you're dealing with children who are really cognitively impaired, or let's say we're dealing with normal children and you're dealing with infants or babies, 1-year-olds, then most of the time you want them to play with objects first. And then as they get older, the objects, you can have more picture books, TV, something just a little bit further away. They don't have to touch it to understand it. They don't have to take it apart to understand it. That is more concrete. But as they distance themselves from it, then later on you can just tell them a story, and they don't need the book. They can hear something about what happened in your day, and they can listen to it. That's more abstract. That's distancing. You got it? Distances moves the child's experiences from her hands, that's where it starts, from the hands, to eventually the brain. That's distancing. That's very important. A gradual increase in the perceptual distance of infants and the accompanying shift from the senses of touch, taste, and smell to vision and hearing. Right. So the senses of touch, taste, and smell, there the child has to have it in their hands for that, right? But vision and hearing, it can be a picture or a word for hearing. So as distance increases, the infant has less contact with an object and relies on visual or auditory images. The gradual process of distances is associated with play activities of the child. Real imaginary objects are manipulated through language stories. So here now the child becomes interested in stories because they can imagine. They start imagining as you're reading them the story. They start seeing the pictures in their brain. And that's an important cognitive skill, distancing. Distance is the perceptual skill, but as they're able to do these imaginary kinds of things, pretend play, those kinds of things, you know that the cognitive skills are advancing. Symbolization is a more efficient way of manipulating objects because mental representation can be accomplished more quickly and with less effort than physical movement. So the brain becomes much more efficient by using symbols, abstract symbols, than by always having the object right there, And that's why words become important to the child, because it becomes more efficient to use words than to bring an object. So here are some other concepts to early cognitive development: object permanence, causality, and means ends. Object permanence: objects exist even if you don't see them. So according to Piaget, in order for first words to occur, a child must understand that an object still exists whenever it is no longer in sight. Because then what is the point of calling the name of the object if it doesn't exist unless you see it? So that's an important concept for learning language, is object permanence. And that was why I did the object permanence thing. Now, I can tell you this, I don't know if it really worked. I mean, he only developed, I think I only got him to understand that I could test at that time, because I was only with him for 1.5 years because I left the job and went to a better job. 1.5 years, and I think in 1.5 years I was able to get him to understand. It may have only been a year, about 20 words. And the school teachers, the teachers were very surprised that he even understood that. Oh, thank you, Susan. Lecture 3, cognition. Yeah, let me make sure. Yeah, this is still part of lecture. Okay. Hold on, I messed up. Okay, there it is right there. All right. So causality, events can cause other events. Does everybody have this? I'm so sorry. It's lecture 3. I guess right here on this slide, I thought from there people had this. It's that lecture. Everybody has? Okay, good. Let's see. I'll try to stop at summaries. Okay, I did that. Okay. Causality. Events can cause other events. So something you do, if I take a hammer and hit this nail, you know, these little tool boxes that they have for kids, if I take a hammer and I hit this nail, the nail will go, you know, into the hole. You know, if I take this ball and I throw it, it will go to the other side of the room. So causality. You know, I used to do all these kinds of early play behaviors to teach cognitive skills as I was also doing language, so that language would emerge, like Piaget said. Means ends, ways to attain a goal. This is similar to causality, but here means ends, like a child, a normal child will take a chair to a high shelf and then climb on the chair to try to reach an object. That means ends. With my children who are impaired, I would get a lot of string toys. Also, I was teaching causality and means ends, so I wanted to know how to do the causality by pulling on the string, which would be a way to obtain a goal. We did fishing, try to catch the fish. We did a lot of different things, you know, in terms of play and teaching the word fish. It was fun. At least I thought it was fun. Some of my kids didn't think it was fun. So here are some behaviors that you will see that the child will do early on. Imitation. Imitation is a cognitive skill that helps with language development by duplicating what is being said to them. Play is a cognitive skill in which children learn child-oriented activities that provide the child with opportunities to learn. And then communication, conceptual development contributes to the child's language ability. Okay. Here, if they learn concepts, which will be cognition, it will contribute to the child's language ability so that he can communicate. You use play, these activities, to teach some of those early cognitive behaviors like object permanence, causality, and means ends, so that they can lay the foundation for language. Summary. Children learn from object functions. They learn through playing with the object. Children learn how to use and respond to signals, which are indicators that elicit an action. This is causality. Children learn to interpret the actions of others, and they learn how to communicate in their environment using symbols like words. Symbols are entities that are used to represent another entity. Okay? Like the word DOG is an entity that is used to represent the animal dog. There you go. I think this is where I want to stop. I think that's good enough. You think that's good enough? hope these aren't on the test right here, because I gotta go back and look through my test. I hope all that, because I think I did a lot with the other group. So I can't remember how. I remember we went fast last year. Oh my God, no, Yellow, I was finished. No, I'm sorry. Look, I only have a few more. So I'm going to do these three. Sorry. Early perceptual development is growth of the nerve cells. We already did this. Myelination. Oh, this was my RT class. Okay. Did we do this? Did I talk to you about myelination? Not that we did this slide, but myelination. Myelination? Ah, shucks, that's my other class. Hold on, let me think about it. All right, I'll stop. I'll just try to remember to take it off the test. I'll stop right here. You have enough. Any questions? You have enough to do with your theories and differentiating the theories, and then thinking about questions that I might ask where you may have to use some type of real life kind of example. All right, if there are no questions then. Right now I do. Oh, well, the quiz covers what you learned last week, I think. Hold on. Let me check. I'm pretty sure it does. Let's see. I think it covers some of the theories. Hold on. Let me go through. It's short. But I think I asked you a question that you have to write, and that's why I made it 30 minutes. Because otherwise, I think I was going to make it 15 minutes. Let's see here. 1, 2. Oh my God, this is so short. You have 8 multiple choice questions that have to do with your theories. And you have 1 question where you have to give an example of something. And then you have a list question, list something. It's not going to take you 30 minutes to even do it. But it is based on the theories. And, you know, the theories not Piaget. It's from last week. So you don't have to worry about cognitive. How about that? And what was the other one? Not social interactionist either. Okay. All right. Well, good luck to you. I am going to go out and take, let me turn off the recording.